Picture this. You wait 5 months, 5 long months, to see Caitlin Clark play competitive basketball again after her injury kept her sidelined for most of the WNBA season. And when USA Basketball finally posts practice footage, what do they choose to show you? One single shot, Paige Beckers hitting a routine jumper over Caitlin during a standard defensive drill. Within seconds, and I mean literal seconds, both fan bases exploded into complete warfare in the comment section. But here's what nobody's talking about. US. Basketball knew exactly what they were doing. They had hours of practice footage. They could have posted Caitlin draining those signature threes from 30 feet out. They could have shown Cameron Brink blocking shots into another dimension. They could have highlighted any of the incredible talent at that camp. Instead, they chose that specific clip. And if you think that was an accident, you haven't been paying attention to how organizations manufacture engagement in 2024. Let's be crystal clear about what we're witnessing here. This isn't about basketball. This is about USA Basketball deliberately weaponizing fan-base rivalry to generate clicks, comments, and social media chaos. And honestly, many of you saw this coming from a mile away. You've been saying for weeks that the way they're handling Caitlin's return feels orchestrated. You were onto something when you noticed how selectively they've been releasing content. Reading between the lines reveals a calculated strategy to keep the drama machine running at full speed. If you believe the story behind the story matters more than manufactured controversy, smash that like button right now. It tells us we're on the right track and that you want real analysis instead of fan-base warfare. Here's what's at stake, and it's bigger than one practice clip. We're watching the weaponization of women's basketball fan bases for engagement metrics. USA Basketball isn't naive. They employ social media professionals who understand exactly how tribal loyalty works online. They know that Caitlin Clark fans have been desperately waiting to see her play after 5 months of recovery. They know that Paige Beckers has her own passionate fan base that's been waiting for her to reclaim the spotlight she lost to injuries. And they absolutely know that putting these two players in any kind of comparative situation, even a meaningless practice drill, will detonate the comment section. This strategy has real consequences. When you deliberately pit fan bases against each other, you're not building the sport. You're creating division. You're training fans to view every interaction between talented players as a competition that must have a winner and a loser. You're reducing complex, multidimensional athletes to simplistic narratives that fit into social media sound bites. And most importantly, you're teaching young fans that basketball is about individual rivalry and fan-base loyalty, rather than team success and appreciating multiple forms of excellence. The manipulation gets even more obvious when you look at the timing. Caitlin has been out for 5 months. That's an eternity in sports time. During that entire period, fans have been starving for any content, any update, any sign that she's healthy and ready to return. USA Basketball knew they were sitting on a goldmine of anticipation. They could have released footage showing her progression, her work ethic, her integration with Team USA. Instead, they saved it all for this moment, and when they finally posted, they chose the one clip guaranteed to start a war. Let's break down what actually happened, because the facts matter here. Team USA Basketball posted practice footage from their training camp in North Carolina. In this footage, there's a clip of Paige Beckers hitting a shot over Caitlin Clark during what anyone with basketball knowledge can immediately identify as a standard defensive drill. Not a scrimmage, not a high-stakes one-on-one competition, not anything remotely significant in terms of evaluating player ability. Just a routine drill where offensive players work on creating shots and defensive players work on contesting them. Paige got her shot off. It went in. Caitlin was playing the defense she was supposed to play in that drill. That's the entire story. That's all that happened. But if you read the comments, you'd think someone had just won a championship or suffered a devastating loss. Caitlin fans immediately rushed to defend her, pointing out that this was one possession during practice. that she'd been out for 5 months, that practice drills don't determine who's the better player. Paige fans started celebrating like they'd just witnessed definitive proof of superiority. And USA Basketball, they sat back and watched the engagement numbers skyrocket. Mission accomplished. The comment section transformed into exactly what they knew it would become. A digital battlefield where nuance goes to die and tribal loyalty becomes the only thing that matters. Here's the part that should make you think. They had options. So many options. The same practice session that produced this controversial clip also featured Caitlin looking remarkably sharp after 5 months away from competitive basketball. Analysts who've seen more of the footage have noted that she was moving well, shooting with confidence, playing engaged defense, demonstrating the kind of quick return to form that's actually impressive given how long she's been out. That's newsworthy. That's what fans have been waiting to see. Evidence that Caitlin Clark is healthy and ready to compete at the highest level again. But that story doesn't generate the same level of engagement as manufactured controversy. Positive news about a player's recovery doesn't make people argue in comments. It doesn't create shareable moments of outrage. It doesn't pit fan bases against each other in ways that drive algorithmic amplification. So USA Basketball made a choice. They chose engagement over storytelling. They chose controversy over celebration. They chose to exploit existing fan base tensions rather than highlight the remarkable moment of talented players coming together to represent their country. And they did it knowing that both Caitlin and Paige would become targets of unnecessarily harsh comments from opposing fan bases, because that's what happens when you deliberately manufacture drama. The footage itself reveals the manipulation even more clearly. If you watch the actual clip without the fan base warfare goggles on, you see exactly what it is. A routine moment in practice. Paige uses a pump fake, one of her signature moves that's been part of her game forever. She creates just enough space. She takes the shot, it goes in. Caitlin is in defensive stance, contesting appropriately for a practice drill where the point is skill development, not winning individual possessions. Elite offensive players score on elite defenders all the time. That's literally what happens when you put talented players against each other. Sometimes offense wins, sometimes defense wins. One possession tells you absolutely nothing about overall player quality, but USA Basketball posted it anyway, knowing full well that context and nuance would disappear within seconds of the clip going live. The comment section tells the real story of what USA Basketball accomplished here. Let's filter out the noise and look at what people are actually saying, because it reveals everything about this manufactured controversy. Caitlin fans writing things like, "This was one drill. She's been out 5 months. This means nothing." Paige fans responding with, "Finally excited to win something," which is unnecessarily brutal considering Paige has dealt with career-altering injuries through no fault of her own. Back and forth, endlessly. Exactly what USA Basketball knew would happen when they pressed post on that specific clip. Here's where I want your perspective. And drop this in the comments because it matters. Why does one practice shot during a routine drill create this level of chaos? What does this say about how we consume basketball content in 2024? Are we being trained to care more about individual rivalry than team success? Because that's exactly what organizations are counting on when they manufacture these moments. But let's talk about what's actually happening with Caitlin's return, because that's the story that deserves attention. 5 months away from competitive basketball is a serious amount of time. For someone who went straight from an absolutely epic college season into the WNBA with essentially no break, then suddenly getting forced to sit on the sidelines watching that's mentally devastating. The fact that she remained visibly engaged with her team throughout her injury, supporting teammates from the bench, staying connected to the game, that speaks to genuine maturity and professionalism that often gets overlooked. The practice footage, when you look past the manufactured drama, shows Caitlin looking remarkably sharp. She's moving well. She's shooting with that signature confidence we remember. She's playing engaged defense, something critics have unfairly targeted throughout her entire career. The narrative that she's a complete defensive liability has followed her forever, but if you actually watch her play, instead of repeating tired takes, you see someone who's not an elite defender, but definitely not the turnstile some make her out to be either. Multiple times in this practice footage, you can see Caitlin in proper defensive stance, actively working on that end of the floor. That tells you something important. She understands that's an area where she can improve, and she's putting in the work to demonstrate she can hold her own against the top competition. For someone coming back after 5 months out, that level of engagement on defense is actually noteworthy. But that's not the clip USA Basketball chose to highlight. The Paige Beckers element of this story is actually significant when you understand the context. She's at this camp trying to rebuild her reputation as one of the truly elite players in women's basketball. The hype when she first arrived at UConn was absolutely massive. She was supposed to be the next great face of the sport. Then injuries completely derailed her trajectory. Not her fault at all. Injuries are devastating and unpredictable. But by the time she was finally healthy, Caitlin Clark had already become the dominant force in college basketball. That creates an interesting dynamic. Paige is actively trying to reclaim some of that spotlight that shifted to Caitlin during her injury-plagued seasons. One shot in practice doesn't accomplish that goal, obviously, but it gives her fans something to celebrate and amplifies this rivalry narrative. And USA Basketball absolutely understands this dynamic. They know exactly what they're doing when they post footage that positions these two players against each other. Some comments actually got it right. One person wrote, "If anybody is going crazy about her cooking, Caitlin in this clip, they don't know basketball and are just being weird." That's remarkably level-headed considering the chaos erupting around it. Practice footage of one possession proves nothing. Both players have scored on each other throughout their careers. That's what elite offensive players do. They find ways to score on defenders, even really good defenders. The reference people are making to Paige's pump fake is accurate. That's a key part of her offensive arsenal. She's crafty, highly skilled, knows how to create space and get her shot off in tight situations. Caitlin has her own complete toolkit. The step-back three from absurd range, the pull-up shot from basically anywhere past half court, the ability to shoot off the dribble from 30 feet out. Both are incredibly skilled offensive players who can score in multiple ways. Neither one scoring on the other in practice proves anything about overall superiority. What's genuinely frustrating is that we finally got to see Caitlin playing actual competitive basketball after 5 long months of waiting, not shooting off a rack in some empty gym, not working out alone, actually going against live defenders, making real-time reads, competing in drills that simulate game situations. That should be the story. Caitlin is back, and she looks ready to compete. Instead, the story became about one practice shot and the ensuing fanbase war. USA Basketball got exactly the engagement they wanted, but at what cost? They turned what should have been a celebration of talented players working together into manufactured drama. They weaponized existing fan-base tensions for clicks and comments. They reduced complex athletes to simplistic narratives that fit into tribal warfare. And they did it knowing that both Caitlin and Paige would become targets of unnecessarily harsh comments from people who care more about defending their preferred player than appreciating basketball excellence. This is bigger than one clip. This is about how organizations are learning to manipulate fan base emotions for algorithmic amplification. It's about the deliberate choice to prioritize engagement metrics over building the sport. It's about training fans to view every interaction as a battle that must have a winner and a loser. And it's about the consequences when we allow this manipulation to go unchallenged. Connecting the dots reveals a pattern. USA Basketball isn't alone in this strategy. Organizations across sports are learning that manufactured controversy drives more engagement than celebrating excellence. That tribal warfare in comment sections boosts algorithmic reach more than positive storytelling. That exploiting existing tensions is more profitable than building community. And they're making deliberate choices based on these incentives. If you're tired of seeing talented athletes reduced to engagement bait, if you want basketball coverage that celebrates excellence instead of manufacturing drama, if you believe women's basketball deserves better than fan-base warfare, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We're going to keep calling out these manipulation tactics, and we're going to keep focusing on the real stories that matter. Next up, we're diving into how media coverage of women's basketball is shifting, and what that means for players like Caitlin who are finally getting the attention they deserve while also becoming targets of manufactured controversy. The reality is simple. Caitlin Clark is back. She looks healthy, sharp and ready to compete at the highest level. Paige Beckers is working to reclaim her position as one of the elite players in the sport. Both are incredibly talented. Both deserve to be celebrated for their skills and dedication. Both are teammates working toward representing their country, not enemies in some manufactured rivalry. And USA Basketball needs to decide whether they want to build the sport through celebrating these players or exploit them for engagement metrics. Based on this practice footage stunt, we know which path they've chosen. The question is whether fans will keep falling for it or start demanding better. Until next time, stay curious, stay skeptical, and keep questioning the narratives they're selling you.